Hello there, I'm Charles Aite. We start with development story from the Bank of Ghana, as it has directed all financial institutions to only accept Ghana cards for all their transactions. The Bank of Ghana explains that this order takes effect from the 1st of July this year. If we could pull up some graphics to help you appreciate what exactly is stating that in furtherance of its objective of ensuring the safety of the financial system, the BOG, in pursuant to Regulation 7 of the National Identification Register, directs that with effect from the 1st of July, the Ghana card shall be the only identification card that will be will be used actually to undertake transactions at all Bank of Ghana licensed and regulated financial institutions, including that of banks, specialized deposit-taking institutions, non-deposit-taking financial institutions, payment service providers, and dedicated electronic money issuers, forex bureaus, and credit reference bureaus. It goes further to explain the fact that in line with this notice, Section 30 of the Anti-Money Laundering Act 2020, as well as regulations within anti-money laundering regulations, all financial institutions shall take steps to update customer records with the Ghana card. Now, customers of the Bank of Ghana regulated financial institutions are also therefore advised to update their records with their respective financial institutions with the Ghana card in line with the notice. So we're going to be keeping an eye on this particular development, especially when the Ghana card registration is currently ongoing across various registration centers in the country. Its impact when it comes to the safety of the financial institutions as well as the mainstreaming or centralization of Ghana's ID system. But we'll also stay with the finance minister once again because he's been explaining some contingency measures to be taken to regain confidence in the domestic and international market. It comes against specific projections from the Bloomberg as well as Fitch Ratings Agency of a B negative as well as a negative outlook for Ghana's fiscal environment. Take a listen to the finance minister as he addressed the media on this pressing matter.
We are also strengthening expenditure management in 2022 and beyond to ensure that we match all expenditures to revenue inflows. All expenditure commitments in 2020 will be adjusted to match revenue collection. Therefore, in accordance with Section 20 of the Public Financial Management Act, the quarterly expenditure ceilings of the approved budget will include up to a 20% downward adjustment beginning in the first quarter of 2022 in commitments across board for covered entities benefiting from the 2022 budget, subject to revenue performance. This means that our fiscal consolidation addenda is not going to be only revenue-led, but also expenditure-focused. In addition to the e-levy, we are committed to the implementation of other revenue measures, including the exemption bill, property taxes, internally generated funds, etc. I look forward to further engaging with you all in the coming days and sharing government's vision for creating a country where ingenuity is encouraged, where innovation is supported, where public service is valued, where responsibility and burden sharing is for all of us and prosperity will be shared. Accountability for the custodianship of public resources would also be prioritized.
Well, Professor Lob Mensah is an associate professor at the Finance Department of the University of Ghana. He joins us via Zoom. We're grateful that he could join us. It's clear that government is equally concerned about the trajectory of our fiscal outlook. Let's start with some aggressive reforms being introduced. A 20% downward adjustment in budget for MMDAs. You did hear from the finance minister. How sustainable is this as a measure to deepen, our stance when it comes to the outlook in the future?
Well, it cannot continue to be in the same direction, for the next few years. But I can tell you that in the interim, short to medium term, it's one of the measures that can be put in place. But let's also look at, some of these MMDAs that the finance minister is targeting. We cannot run 20% budget cuts across all the, various MDAs and MMDAs. If you look at the MDAs, some of them, their functions have direct impact on the economy. Others, their functions might not necessarily be of a direct impact. It may take time. Now, if you take, for instance, looking at the various categories on the expenditure side, if you go to the appendix of the budget, the central government expenditure, for me, needs to be looked at. If you are cutting, then a sensitive areas like education, health, roads, you might not necessarily look at that place, reducing their budget. Okay. However, ministries that don't have direct impact, ancillary ministries, you may go ahead to cut them. So to say that you are cutting across all the ministries, I have a question to that. But then the initiative is good. I have been dreaming of looking at our expenditure side of the budget, how we can contain some, expenditure from that point. And so the 20% cut, it makes sense. That should tell you that our expenditure is going to reduce in total by 20% margin. And so the 137 billion that was being targeted in the budget in November for this year will be reduced by 20%. So we're looking at around 107, which is almost close to, the revenue that we intend to generate, which is about 100 billion. And so it's a good call. And if we should recompute the budget deficit based on this percentage cut announced by the finance minister, I would say that, yes, we are on course. It's a bold step. It might not be politically wise, but economically it makes sense, and it's good for all of us.
Indeed, but government isn't backing down on the e-levy, even though many have argued that it is a retrogressive and only it is retrogressive in substance and only a 35% contribution to revenue. How instrumental will the e-levy be in balancing our revenue mobilization capacity?
Well, if you look at the e-levy, it is very, very sensitive in the sense that government knows the breakdown of its expenditure and then also the breakdown of its revenue. Now, if this e-levy does not come true, then politically motivated policies that are being rolled out by government might not come true. Government knows that the politics is in the e-levy. That is why they are insisting on it. Now, I always, categorize the budget, the expenditure side of the budget into two. There are some expenditures that government have control over. Others government have no control over. So things like interest payment and then, salaries and emolument, government has no control over them. But things like capital expenditure, government has, 100% control over as to where to put up infrastructure, where to, send a certain amenity to ensure that they flex their political muscle. And that is why they are fighting for the e-levy. If you look at, the capital expenditure from last year's budget, the e-levy targeting about 7 billion, Ghana cedis, takes almost about 80% of the capital expenditure. And, government is really indeed looking out for this money. And if this money does not come, that flexibility that government has in terms of manipulating expenditure as to where certain expenditures, so certain projects are supposed to go to show their political muscle will not be there. Indeed. And so, as for that fight, we should expect it. It's something that we should expect. We're going for it. That is why the minister is bent on making sure that we get this through.
Well, Fitch predicts a negative outlook for Ghana. How can this be reversed, especially when it's just a projection after all?
Yeah, I always say that it is a transition. We've been in after the B category, that is where almost all the African countries find themselves. But we need to understand that when you are graded B negative, we in the quantitative finance and quantitative economics area, we do something we call transitional probability. We've been in this situation, which has been announced based on the information that is out there. That is not a steady state for you. It's not a place that you have to remain forever. If you work hard and you put very good measures in place, very good revenue measures in place, ensure that you spend prudently, like as you're saying, we're going to cut, budget expenditure for MDAs by 20%. It's it's a way of prudently, managing your finances. And I think if you manage it going forward, by the next 6 months, next 1 year, we should be in a different state. And Indeed. I think the next, assessment, we should be able to move out of this, negative outlook that we're looking at. So
Great. Professor Lord Mensah, we're grateful that you could join us with your input on this. You're still watching The Marketplace.